Dear friends, I'm very happy to be here this evening with all of you. The core scriptures of the Hindus are the Vedas. And the essence of the Vedas is expressed in the Gayatri. So your group, your organization, the Gayatri consciousness, the Gayatri Pariwar, is named after the Gayatri, which is the essence of the Vedas. The entire message of the Vedas is there in the Gayatri. Now, the highest wisdom of the Vedas is found in the Upanishads. The Upanishads are the philosophical portions of the Vedas. In each Veda, there are some Upanishads, and sometimes these Upanishads are found towards the end of the Vedic sections, of the Vedic Samhitas. So sometimes they are found at the end. The Sanskrit word for end is anta. So the Vedanta, literally the end of the Vedas, in one sense, the end of the Vedas are the Upanishads. In another sense, the highest wisdom of the Vedas are the Upanishads. Can we settle down there? Can we settle down there?
I think parking is a little far, so leave them maybe a couple of minutes.
Sure. It's okay.
Sorry.
So the highest wisdom that we have in Hinduism is found in the Vedanta, in the Upanishads. And these Upanishads form part of the Vedas, the philosophical portion of the Vedas, the highest wisdom of the Vedas. So another meaning of the word Vedanta, literally one of the meanings of the word Vedanta is end of the Veda. Anta means end, so Vedanta means end of the Veda. But a better meaning is the highest wisdom, the highest knowledge of the Vedas. So Vedanta means anta in sense of the highest knowledge. And that you find in the Upanishads. Primarily, we take 10 Upanishads as major Upanishads because Adi Shankaracharya more than 1400 years ago wrote his famous bhashyas, commentaries on these 10 Upanishads. Isha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, Mundaka Upanishad, Mandukya, Aitareya, Taittiriya Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So these are the 10 Upanishads which are taken as major Upanishads. Now they are difficult. If you ask any group of Hindus, have you read the Upanishads? Most of them will say no, we haven't. We've heard of them, but we haven't. But luckily for us, the entire Upanishadic wisdom was condensed and given to us in a very simple Sanskrit by Sri Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra when he taught Arjuna the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita contains the essence of the Upanishads. Sometimes people ask me, so like the Bible is the central scripture of Christians and they all read the Bible. The Quran is the central scripture of the of Islam, the Muslims all read the Quran. What about Hindus? If Upanishads are the central scripture, most of us do not read the Upanishads. Well, there is no loss there because we read the Gita. Most of us do read the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Bhagavad Gita contains the essence of the Upanishads. There is a shloka which you sometimes, a verse, sometimes you read. Sarvapriyanandji gao. The Upanishads are like cows, and Krishna is the, like you say in America, a cowboy. like the milkman who milks the cows, and the Gita is like the milk of the cows, the essence of the Upanishads. So the ideas of Vedanta are all here. The Gita that you are studying, it's all there. But before we go into this, you're all studying the second chapter? You're starting the second chapter. I'll tell you about it. This is just for the kids. You've heard of the new Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens? How many of you have seen it? Quite a few? Quite a few of you have seen it, yes? And some young people here and some who are young at heart also have seen it. And many of you don't know the link between this book and Star Wars. No, you've never heard of it. Can there be a link between this book and Star Wars? Yes, there is. If you Google it, you'll find. If you Google, you know the person who directed the first Star Wars movie, George Lucas? If you Google it, George Lucas, Vedanta, Star Wars, you will immediately find the links. You see, his friend was Joseph Campbell, who was a very well-known writer and intellectual who wrote on mythology in the 1970s, long before you were born, when I was your age. And in the 1970s, when George Lucas went to make this movie, he talked to Joseph Campbell for ideas. And Joseph Campbell told him about Vedanta. And there is something called Brahman, which is consciousness, a force which pervades this entire universe. And I sort of imagine in my mind's eye, when Campbell is saying Brahman, difficult Sanskrit word, you know it, but George Lucas doesn't know it. So what did he say? It's a force which pervades the universe. Ah, force, okay, force. If you've seen the Star Wars movie, you know about the force. The idea of the force is very much like the idea of Satchidananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, pervading the entire universe. You're welcome to come in. Hello? Yes, no. Okay. So, and then he made this movie. And there are many ideas in the Star Wars movies which are taken from Vedanta. But that's not the subject today. But you see how strange these connections are. Very interesting connections. And the Star Wars movies are so popular all over the world. I saw the first one when I was your age. Okay. And all of that is put in a very easy form in the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 chapters. You know the story that there was going to be this big war, and the Kauravas are the bad guys, and the Pandavas are the good guys, and Arjuna is sort of like Luke Skywalker. And he is going to fight against the bad guys, and his war is going to start, and Arjuna suddenly says, I want to fight. I don't want to kill these people, and I don't want the kingdom. I know they are bad guys, but I don't want to do this. I don't want to fight. And then he tells Krishna, who is a great spiritual master, a bit like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah, like Yoda. Like Yoda. And then Krishna teaches Arjuna. He gives this wisdom of Vedanta to Arjuna. He tells him, see, I'll tell you a secret. You are not who you think you are. You think you are a prince, Arjuna. But actually, you are a spiritual being. You are consciousness. You are an immortal consciousness. Your body is born, and in this birth you are Arjuna. But before you were born as Arjuna, you were there. You existed. You had earlier lives. And likewise, everybody here, all these kings, your brothers, your enemies, your teachers, your grandfather, everybody, all who are around here, they are not these bodies. You think they are bodies, but they are not bodies. They are not even the mind. Beyond the body and mind, there is spirit, existence, consciousness. And they existed like that earlier, and you are like that now, and you will be like that later on. You don't know it. If you know it, you will be free of all these troubles that you are facing. And Arjuna says, okay, that's what I want. I don't want to fight. I want to know the truth about myself. I want to know how I am the Atman, Brahman, existence, consciousness, bliss. How I am the force. How do I know that? And that's what Arjuna wants to do. And Krishna teaches him. And that is the Gita. That is the Gita. 18 chapters. And in fact, we are starting the second chapter. The most important chapter in the whole book is the second chapter. It's a big chapter. But the most important, if you memorize something, you memorize these verses of the second chapter. That's like as good as memorizing the whole message of the Gita. If it is all that there is in the Gita, the essence, then why does he go on for 16 more chapters? Because Arjuna did not understand him fully. He had many questions. So he asks questions and Krishna teaches. So there's a third chapter, a fourth chapter, a fifth chapter. But the essential message, what Krishna wanted to tell Arjuna, is all there in the second chapter. So that's what we are starting. This book has been commented upon. Explanations have been written by many great spiritual masters. Shankaracharya wrote his magnificent Bhashyam, commentary, explanation. Commentary means explanation. Sanskrit word, Bhashyam. Bhashyam. He wrote his explanation more than 1400 years ago. 1400 years ago, Shankaracharya wrote this. After that, there were other great masters, Ramanujacharya. There was Madhvacharya. They wrote their commentaries on this book. And many others, Madhusudana Saraswati. And so many others. The very famous commentary written by Gyaneshwari, and the commentator of Bhagavatam, Shri, I forget the name, we use it in Vedant. So there are so many such commentaries. And these commentaries, even in modern day, people are still Tilak, Balgandhara Tilak has written a commentary, and other Swamis have written commentary. Great teachers have written commentaries on this. So there are many explanations of the Bhagavad Gita. And Shankaracharya's commentary, Adi Shankaracharya's commentary, actually starts with the second chapter. He doesn't say anything about the first chapter. He starts with Krishna's teaching in the second chapter. So that's why the second chapter is so important. Now, since the chapter is big and we don't have much time, and I also want to get on to these questions that you have asked, so I don't have much time. And when I was coming here, I was thinking, what should I do? I've got so much to cover, so I can't teach the whole second chapter. What I'll do is, I'll talk about one verse which is the most difficult verse in the whole Bhagavad Gita. It's really tough. But I'm going to tell you. Let's see if you get it. Sometimes I've seen grown-up people don't get it, but kids get it. It's in one sense it's extremely simple, and in another sense it's very difficult. I have heard a great Swami saying that Yahato Bhagavad Gita ki hriday. This is the heart of the Bhagavad Gita. So this verse, I will take up that verse first and explain that, and you'll have to really pay attention, follow me closely when we do that. And then we will go on to the end of the Bhagavad Gita with a few verses. Not the end of the Bhagavad Gita, end of the second chapter. And a few verses we will do there, and that's it. And then I will try to answer your questions. You will find many of your questions have already been answered when I finish. Okay. Which is the verse that I will take up? The essential message of Bhagavad Gita, the core idea, according to many commentators. That is the 16th verse of second chapter. You open your book, chapter number 2, verse number 16. Verse number 16. You have not done it yet, but we'll discuss it now. There are different ways of explaining it. I will take up the non-dualistic way, Shankaracharya's way of explaining it. So, will you recite it after me? What tune do you follow when people chant it here? Okay. So recite after me. Nasato vidyate bhavo. Nasato vidyate bhavo. Na bhavo vidyate sataha. Na bhavo vidyate sataha. Ubhayorapi drishtvantaha. He's raised his hand first.
Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of books.
Okay, it sounds really profound. The non-existent has no real existence, does not ever come into being, and that which exists never goes out of existence. What does it mean? It sounds really difficult. And that's what we are going to do now. So please follow this carefully, okay? If you borrow something, it really doesn't belong to you, right? You borrow your friend's Xbox, it really doesn't belong to you because it belongs to your friend, and one day you'll have to give it back. So if you borrow something, one day you have to return it. If it belongs to you, you don't have to return it to anybody. But if it doesn't belong to you, if you borrow something, you have to return it. Is that clear? If you borrow money, you have to return it. If you borrow a game, you have to return it. If you borrow a book, you have to return it. You better return it. Otherwise, he won't like you anymore. So that which is borrowed doesn't stay for long. It goes away. It goes away. That which is borrowed doesn't stay. It goes away. Yeah? What did he say? That which is borrowed, it goes away. It doesn't stay. I'll give you another example. Suppose your mom is boiling vegetables in a saucer, there's water, and in that she puts vegetables on the fire, on the range, cooking range. The vegetables are hot. Does the heat belong to the vegetables? No. Why are the vegetables hot? They are borrowed heat. How do you know they borrowed heat? Because the heat goes away. They were cold earlier, and once your mom serves them, after some time they will become cold again. They have borrowed their heat from what? The boiling water. Right? There is heat in the cooking range, and that makes the saucepan hot. And the hot saucepan makes the water hot and boiling. And the boiling hot water gives heat to the vegetables. You with me? So the vegetables have borrowed heat from the water. So when after some time, if you take the vegetables out of the boiling water, vegetables will become cold again. So the heat does not belong to the vegetables. Now they got it from the water. Does the heat belong to the water? No. How do you know that? Because before water was cold. After some time, if it's hot, and if your mom turns off the range, after some time what will happen to the water? Cold. It is boiling and then later it becomes cold again. So the heat does not belong to the water because it comes and goes. The water must have borrowed that heat from something else. And where did the water borrow the heat from? From the saucepan. Right? The dish which was there on the cooking range. And the dish, does it have heat of its own? Is it always hot? No. If it's not always hot, it gets heat and it loses heat. That means it must have borrowed the heat. Isn't it? Where did the dish borrow the heat from? From the stove, from the cooking range, from the fire in the cooking range. So it borrowed the heat from the fire. And the fire, here's the thing. And the fire, where did the fire borrow the heat from? Is the fire hot? Whenever there is fire, is it hot? Yeah. Does the heat of the fire ever go away? As long as the fire is there, does it ever go away? No. That's the funny thing. The heat of the dish goes away. The heat of the water goes away. The heat of the vegetables goes away. Sometimes they are hot, sometimes they are cold. But the fire is always hot. The fire is always hot. Now the fire has always got heat. That means the fire did not borrow the heat from anything else. The heat belongs to the fire. The fire has heat of its own. And how do you know that? Because the heat never goes away. Whenever the fire is there, it has got heat. Very simple example. But now things will get complicated. Now you really have to pay attention. If a thing has something as its own property, it will never go away. It will always be there. If it comes and goes, then it is borrowed from something else. It doesn't belong to, it's not intrinsic. Like the heat of the fire. The heat of the vegetables, heat of the water, heat of the saucepan, it comes and goes. Because it doesn't belong to them. But it belongs to the fire. And the fire has heat of its own. So as long as fire is there, it will be hot. As long as fire is there, it will be hot. I saw a picture, sometimes in the United States it gets very hot, very cold. You never see this in India. But it gets even colder in Russia. So there was a picture of an airplane in Siberia, which is caught by the snow all around. There's snow on the runway. And the passengers have been asked to get down and push the airplane. So there was a picture. Even in Siberia, where it is so cold, will fire be hot or not? Yeah. In Siberia also fire will be hot. So fire always has heat of its own. Now, let's apply this logic. Existence. Existence. If something borrows existence, then existence will come and go, like heat. If something has existence as its own property, like fire has heat as its own property, if there is something which has existence as its intrinsic property, what will happen to that thing? It's a very complex question, very subtle question. Let me repeat the question. Borrowed properties come and go. If existence is a borrowed property, what will happen? A thing will come into existence and go out of existence. In other words, it will be anityam, non-eternal. Are you with me? If something has borrowed existence, whatever you borrow will be lost. If something has borrowed existence, one day it will lose existence. If it loses existence, it will go out of existence. It will disappear. So something which does not last, it goes out of existence. In other words, simple word is, it is in Sanskrit, anityam, non-eternal, temporary, transient, passive. Now the question, I'll put the question to you. If something has existence as its own property, then what will happen to that thing? Let me repeat the question, please, who gets it, the grown-ups or the kids? If fire has heat as its own property, it will always be hot. If something has existence as its own property, what will happen to that thing? Yeah? Yeah, you're right. The kids got it first. They got it immediately. And it's yeah, okay. Only one grown-up person got it. She's a kid at heart. No, you got it because you're sitting with the kids, that's why. Yeah. If something has existence as its own property, it will always exist. It will never die. And if something borrows existence, then it will always die. Okay, so what? Now look around in the world. Look around in this world. You will find everything dies. Everything dies in this world. Look around in this world. Things are created and things are destroyed. Yeah? Houses, cars, planes. Even countries are born and countries break apart. People are born and people die. And it happens all the time. You buy a game, a nice shiny thing, after a few days it's broken. Everything passes away. Which means, do they have existence as their own property? No, you're right. They must have borrowed existence. They must have borrowed existence from something. Now, the Upanishads say, Vedanta says, that all of this, today we talk about about atoms, protons, electrons and all that. The ancient people talked about this entire universe being made of 5 things. What are they? Prithvi, earth, all the solid stuff. Apa, water, all the liquid stuff. Agni, fire. Vayu, air, and Akasha, space. 5 things. It's not just in India. Even the ancient Greeks, most of the ancient civilizations, they talked about 5 elements. This entire universe is made up of those things. So, all the things that we see are made up of 5 elements. Right? And if you think about it, their existence depends upon those 5 elements. Imagine the water, the wave in the river, what is the wave made of? Water. And if you take all the water out of the wave, what will happen to the wave? It will disappear. So the existence of the wave is borrowed from the water. This chair is made of wood. It's made of wood. And if you take the wood away from the chair, what will happen to the chair? It will disappear and fall down on the ground. It will disappear. So the existence of the chair depends on the existence of the wood. So in the same way, the existence of everything depends on it's borrowed. Everything around you, whatever you can see, hear, touch, everything here has borrowed existence from those 5 elements. Akasha, space, Vayu, air, Agni, fire, Apa, water, and Prithvi, earth. So it's borrowed from them. And they in turn, they also don't have their own existence. They also come into existence and go out of existence. So they have borrowed existence from what the Upanishads call Sat. Sat means pure existence. What does Sat mean? Pure existence. Pure existence. Sat. So this Sat, what is pure existence? You can get an idea. I'll give you an idea. Just look at all the things around you. What you see around you. Tell me a few things that you see around you. What's in front of you? A pencil. You experience, you see a pencil. But do you see only a pencil, or do you see that the pencil exists? Does it exist or not exist? Is it there or not there? It's here. It exists, right? It is. So the pencil is. And tell me another thing that you see. A book. Is the book there or not? It is. So the book exists. The pencil exists. The book exists. Tell me another thing that you see. A backpack. Backpack exists or does not exist? It exists. A backpack exists. And you tell me another thing that you see. Do you see a microphone? Yes. Oh, I see it too. Microphone exists or does not exist? It exists. And you tell me one more thing that you see. A mobile phone exists or does not exist? You tell me, what did you see? A pencil exists. You told me a book exists. And you told me that a backpack exists. And you told me that a microphone exists. And you told me a mobile phone exists or does not exist? Exists. And a pen is different from a book or not? And a book is different from a backpack or not? And a backpack is different from the microphone? Microphone is different from the mobile phone. But in all of them, what is common? Existence, correct? Full marks. This is Vedanta. Existence is common to all of them. They exist. In Sanskrit, it is called astitva. Being. It's one of the most profound concepts in philosophy. Being itself, astitva. And that is common to all things. Anything that exists has this astitva. If you take the wood out of the chair will disappear. If you take water out of the wave will disappear. If you take existence out of the pencil, what will happen? It will disappear. If you take existence out of the book, it will become non-existent. Out of the backpack, non-existent. If you take the existence out of the microphone, non-existent. And of the mobile phone, non-existent. So, all of the things that we see in this universe around ourselves, they have borrowed their existence from this pure existence. This pure existence is not a theory. We feel it all the time. Whenever we feel a thing exists, we are feeling two things. The thing itself and existence. Shankaracharya says all our experiences are complex experiences, not simple experiences. We think, what do you see? You say a book. Shankaracharya says, no. You are seeing book exists. Isn't it so? Are you experiencing book does not exist, or are you experiencing book exists? Book exists. So Shankaracharya says all our experience is of two things: the object itself and experience and existence. This existence in all things, pencil exists, book exists, backpack exists, microphone exists, mobile phone exists. This existence in all things, the common existence, is called Sat, pure existence. What is it called? Not the essay code. Essay, Sat, pure existence. And it is common to all things that exist. Now something very interesting. Yeah.
Is there anything that doesn't exist?
Thing that it does not exist, you will not experience because it doesn't exist. For example, no, it's a good question. I'll tell you something. Here is a book, you experience it, and what do you experience? Book exists. Okay, are you experiencing it? You're seeing it? Experience is a fancy word, it just means you see it. You see that the book exists. Now watch. The elephant. Can you see it here? No. Why can't you see it? Because it doesn't exist. Things which do not exist cannot be experienced. So, whatever we experience is based on existence. Okay, I'll get back to you. Let me finish this. Okay. So, whatever we experience is based on existence. And this existence is a common existence common to everything in the universe. And this is what is called in Vedanta Sat. Swami Vivekananda said, it is my goal to explain Vedanta in such a way that even a child can understand it. I thought he was exaggerating, but now I find that it's true. But sometimes children can understand it and grown-ups cannot. They have a very direct understanding. Children have very direct understanding. Okay. Now something interesting. All the things that we experience, as we said, they are born and they die. They are created and they are destroyed. They come into existence and they go out of existence. But this common existence, this Sat, it never dies. It never dies. How? If you break the pencil, pencil exists. So you break the pencil, you say pencil does not exist anymore. True. But the broken pencil exists. If you destroy the pencil completely, don't destroy it. If you destroy the pencil completely, you're about to destroy it. No, if you destroy the pencil completely and pound it into powder, into atoms, the atoms exist. If you completely remove it, existence is, pencil does not exist, but the book exists. Existence is there in the book. If you remove the book also, the backpack exists. Existence is there in the backpack. It is just, nothing is there. If you remove everything in deep space, space exists. Existence is there everywhere. In all objects, this is how Shankaracharya puts it, all objects are manifestations of existence. Nama Rupa. Nama, book. Rupa, this one. Nama Rupa only manifests existence. But they have borrowed their existence from Sat. One day this Nama Rupa will die. Book will be gone. But Sat continues. Difficult part is over now. There is a pure existence which is eternal. Where is it? Everywhere. Think of a place where existence is not. If existence is not, that place also is not. So existence is everywhere. When is it? All the time. In the past, in the present, in the future. In which object will you find it? In every object. Objects cannot exist without existence. Without that Sat. So this eternal, omnipresent Sat, apart from which no other object can exist. Very crucial point. Apart from Sat, no other object, nothing can exist. So there is no second thing apart from Sat. I'll repeat it again and once more. There is no second thing apart from Sat. If there is anything apart from Sat, it becomes Asat, non-existent. So there cannot be anything apart from Sat. Since there is no second thing apart from Sat, second in Sanskrit is Dvaita. No second, Advaita. This Sat, pure existence, is Advaita, non-dual. This is the way Shankaracharya has explained it. And who is this Sat? As the book says, the spiritual self within us, as the book says that you yourself are this Sat. You are this pure existence. You are not a body. The body borrows its existence from you. You are not even the mind. The mind borrows its existence and consciousness from you. I am not going to the consciousness aspect, it deals only with the existence aspect. Your mind borrows its consciousness and existence from you. All thoughts, all memories, all ideas, they borrow their existence and consciousness from the Sat and Chit which you are. Yeah?
But do we borrow existence from you?
Yes. As the body borrows existence from you and mind borrows existence from you, but you, the real you, not the body, not the mind, the real you, which is the pure existence, that does not borrow existence from anything. How do you prove that? Because that never goes out of existence. If it borrows, it will have to return. But as you saw, existence is everywhere, it never disappears. If it does not disappear, it always is. So you, what you are, Sat, you never go out of existence. There is no death for you. You are immortal. You will always exist, you always have existed, you always are existing, and you always will exist. This is what Krishna tells Arjuna. If you think about it in this way, it is not a question of belief. It is no longer a question of faith. It's a question of direct understanding. There is no philosophy or religion in the world which expresses this so directly, so rationally, and so powerfully as Vedanta does. You can actually understand this. This is what is called God in Vedanta. This is what is called God in Vedanta. Pure existence. Pure existence. Now, already a question is answered. How do you know, first one, question number one, how do you know if God is real? Now you can answer it. According to Vedanta, God is existence itself. It is because of God everything gets reality. This book, now you can tell me, how does it exist? It has borrowed existence from Sat. That's why it exists. So, all the things that we see around us have borrowed their existence from God. This Sat is God. This pure existence is God, which you are experiencing all the time. The book itself is not God, but the pure existence from which the book has borrowed its existence is God according to Vedanta. God is real, and it can be logically, philosophically demonstrated. The reality of God. We experience it all the time. If this God, the God according to Vedanta, if it were not real, the world would disappear in an instant. The very existence of the world in itself is God, according to Advaita Vedanta. Yeah. Okay. So Krishna tells Arjuna, you are that reality. You are that God, that infinite reality. Now, you must realize that. Right now you feel that you are a body and a mind. You must realize that. The body will die one day. But you are deathless. And you must realize that. And for that sadhana is necessary. Nishkama, karma is necessary. Bhakti is necessary. Meditation is necessary. And hearing these truths and thinking about them, meditating about them. Shravana, manana, nididhyasana is necessary. All of that. And then you will become enlightened. After you become enlightened, Arjuna has this question. So if I become enlightened, what will I be like? What is it like to be enlightened? And those are the verses we will do today. What is it like to be enlightened? Suppose you know the force. You've got the force. Now what is it like? Arjuna asks this question. So in Star Wars you asked a question. What is a Jedi Master like? So that is the question Arjuna asks here. Come to verse number, towards the end of chapter 2. number 54. Verse number 54. Got it? Verse number 54. 54. 5-4. Got it? Yeah. Chapter 2, verse 54. Tell us the page number so that others can also follow. In your book it is?
This one is 120.
Others have also got it, right? Verse number 54. Yeah? Alright, repeat after me. Arjuna Vacha Sthita Prajnasya Ka Bhasha Samadhistasya Keshava Sthita Dhikim Prabhasheta Kimasita Prajeta Kim. Okay, who can read out? Okay, now you can read it out.
Arjun said, "What are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak, and what is his language? How does he sit, and how does he walk?"
Okay. A profound question. Suppose someone attains Brahma Jnana. The whole purpose of this Vedant and Bhagavad Gita and all is to attain Brahma Jnana. Suppose someone attains Brahma Jnana. Now we would like to know, what is it like? If I am going to do sadhana and attain Brahma Jnana, what will happen to me after I attain Brahma Jnana? What will I be like? And that is what is discussed here. Arjuna asks this question and Krishna replies in the remaining verses till the end of the second chapter. Beautiful verses. And what is the use to us? If we learn all this, what is the use to us? Shankaracharya commenting on this, he says, Yani eva kritarthasya lakshanani, tani eva sadhakasya sadhanani, yatna sadhyatvat. The characteristics of a perfected individual, Brahmagyani, his characteristics, are the sadhana for the rest of us. What is natural to an enlightened person are the things that we should practice, so that by that practice we can also become enlightened. Kritarthasya lakshanani, characteristics of a kritartha, of a perfected being. Sadhakasya sadhanani, the practices for us, for the rest of us. Yatna sadhyatva, because by effort we can reach that. So this is the effort that you have to put. Now what is a perfected being like? And Arjuna asks very strategic questions. He asks 4 questions. Sometimes an enlightened being remains in samadhi, in an ecstatic state, merged in God consciousness. Sometimes this enlightened being comes down and interacts with us, talks with us, teaches us, recognizes us, walks, eats. So these are the 2 states. One is called samadhistha avastha, the other one is called vyutthana avastha. So Arjuna asks, what is he like when he is in samadhistha avastha? And what is he like when he is vyutthana avastha? That means when he walks, when he talks, when he sits. Just like us. How is he different? How is he different? After becoming an enlightened person, how will I be different? So that's the question. And Krishna answers. A few verses let's do, and we'll stop. Prajahati yada kaman Sarvan partha manogatan Sarvan partha manogatan Atmannevatmana tushta Atmannevatmana tushta Sthita prajnastaduchyate Sthita prajnastaduchyate. Okay, who will read it out? Yes? You read it out. English meaning of the verse number 55. Yeah.
My dear Arjun, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the enjoyments of freedom, activities, and mental exploitation. He who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he serves
Is that the one, 55? The chapter 2? Oh, you're in a different chapter altogether. Yeah, okay. Read it out.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Brother, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental computation, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness.
Yes. Okay. You can switch it on. Switch. Yeah. So, it says, Krishna says, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata. A beautiful saying. He says that, see, you know what is the condition of all of us? Imagine there is this guy whose father or rich uncle, the proverbial rich uncle, has left him $1 billion. So if you've got $1 billion, you are a billionaire. He's a billionaire. So this guy is a billionaire. If he's got $1 billion, he's a billionaire. But unfortunately, he doesn't know which bank the $1 billion are in, or where are the passbooks, and where that $1 billion is, he doesn't know that. And because he does not know, though he is a billionaire, but he does not know where that money is, so he's on welfare. He has to beg for money, and he has to beg for his food, and he's homeless, he stays on Skid Row. And though we may laugh, we are like that. We are like that. According to Vedanta, you and we, all of us, are Satchidananda, infinite existence, consciousness, bliss. Even if we are that, we don't know that. We have not realized that. We don't find it. It's not a reality for us. And because of that, we are begging for little bits of happiness from the world. We are begging for little bits of happiness from the world. I want pleasure. I want to be happy. What do? Oh, TV, make me happy. I want happiness. Oh, Xbox, video game, make me happy. Because why do you have to depend on the Xbox to make you happy? Because you think you have no happiness inside. It can give me happiness. Yeah, but it's not just kids. Grown-ups are worse. Oh, money, make me happy. Why? Without money, I will not be happy. Because I have no happiness. Money has happiness. Money will give it to me. Oh, car, make me happy. Oh, house, make me happy. And kids, of course. Oh, kids, make me happy. And how do you make your parents happy? You have to get good grades and to behave properly. Otherwise, we can't be happy. We depend on you to be happy. Completely worse than anybody who's on welfare. Much worse. And we are at all the time billionaires. That's the tragedy of it. Vedanta tells us, you are God. Tattvamasi. In Chandogya Upanishad, there is this young boy whose father teaches him Vedanta and says, Sat, this pure existence which we read about just now, this pure existence. Tattvam asi Shvetaketu. O Shvetaketu, oh my son, you are that. That what? Tat Sat. That pure existence. You are that. From that existence, the entire universe has come. All the houses, all the people, all the money, all the cars, all the Xboxes have come from that Sat. They depend on that Sat for their existence. And who is that Sat? You are that Sat. They depend on you for their existence. Now you, that Sat, you are begging from them for your happiness. What a tragedy. We have to realize our true nature as existence, as pure existence. If you do realize what will happen, Prajahati yada kaman. Kaman, the desires that are there in our minds. I'll be happy if I get a video game. I'll be happy if my parents take me to watch The Force Awakens. Why? Because my happiness depends on that. That movie will make me happy. I saw, how kids can manipulate. You think you are clever. Kids are much cleverer than you. Well, I heard a little girl telling her dad, she's in grade 2, telling her dad, so maybe we could go this weekend to watch it? Her dad said, no, we'll go next weekend. And she doesn't get upset. She's so clever. She says, it's okay, but by that time all the other kids would have watched it. Peer pressure. Building up peer pressure on I'll be like the only kid in the class who has not watched it. And maybe the teacher will give an assignment on it. And my grades, they're not doing well anyway. It's like it's your fault if I don't get good grades. You will take me to watch the movie. And the dad actually said, okay, we'll make time. In Bengali they say, Maha Shaitan. When you realize the infinity within, you do not depend upon the little, the little welfare checks doled out by the world to you. Struggling hard to get this or that for happiness and never really getting happiness. So you give up prajahati yada kama. All the little vasanas, desires in my mind which are there, you don't want them anymore. Why? What can they give me which is not mine? They will only reflect back to me the existence, the consciousness, the Ananda, which I am. What can the mirror show me which I am not? The mirror will only show me which I am. It will only give me a reflection of myself. The real thing is here. What will the mirror show me? Just myself. Here is a story for everybody. I think kids can also get it, mostly grown-ups. But okay, here's this little story. You know what are desires like? It's a story of Kashi Desh ki Rajkumari in Hindi. It works beautifully in Hindi, but anyway, I'll tell you in English. A Swami in the Himalayas told me this story. All our desires are like this. There was a kingdom, and there was a king, and there was a queen. And they had a little boy who was the prince. One day, there was going to be a drama, a theatre performance. In those days they had no movies. So they had theatre performances. People acted. And you act in your school, plays. They have a play. You don't have a play, but there are plays. And there's going to be a play. And in the play, one of the roles was the Princess of Kashi. Kashi is a place in India. The Princess of Kashi. And who will act as the Princess of Kashi? And they saw this cute little boy. So they said, the queen said, we'll dress the boy up as a little girl. And she can be the Princess of Kashi. He can be the Princess of Kashi. And they dressed up the little boy as a princess. And he was the Princess of Kashi. And it was so nice, that play, that the queen said, told the court painter, they don't have mobiles, so they can't take a selfie or something. They told the painter, you paint a picture of the boy, dressed as the Princess of Kashi. So they painted a picture. Years passed, and the boy grew up. The prince, 5 years passed, 10 years passed, nearly 15 years passed. And the boy was 19, 20 years old. One day, he was wandering around a big palace, like a huge palace. And some of the rooms are old and dusty. And he was going around seeing what things are there in the palace. And one day he got into his storeroom and he saw an old painting. And he removed the dust wiped out the dust from the painting, and he saw this thing, Kashi, the Princess of Kashi. And the painting of this little girl. And he thought, this is the date is such and such 15 years ago. So she must be my age. And he looked at the painting and he fell in love with her. And he came out of the room, but he was too shy to tell anybody. But like he lost his interest in studies. And he wouldn't go for the horse riding lessons, he wouldn't go for the archery lessons, he just sat in his room and moped and moped. And his mother, the queen, couldn't get it out of him, his father couldn't get it out of him. What's wrong? Tell us. He's too shy to tell them. Then the old minister took him aside and said, tell me, O prince, what bothers you? And the prince said, there is this Princess of Kashi, and I want to marry her. And I will not marry anybody else, and I will not be happy until I have married her. The minister said, that's okay, that's great. Where did you meet her? Oh, I haven't met her, but I have seen her picture. Where did you see a picture? Actually not her picture now, but it's an old picture, 15 years old, the date says so, and it is in our storeroom. Then the minister remembered something vaguely. 15 years old, Princess of Kashi, picture of a little girl, yes. Take me to that place. And the minister the prince took him to that place and showed the painting. This is the painting. And this girl must be now like my age, 19 or 20 years old, and I want to marry her. Then the minister said, sit down, you need to sit down. He said, what? Let me tell you a story. Long time ago, 15 years ago, there was this play in the court. And in the play, one of the roles was the Princess of Kashi. And we wanted to know who can play it. We need a little girl to play that role. And then the prince, this young little boy was around. So we dressed up that little boy as the Princess of Kashi. And could we close that door? We dressed up that princess, that boy as the Princess of Kashi. And then it looked so good that the queen said, paint a picture, and the portrait was painted. So that is the portrait. And the prince was saying, oh, I see. But what does it have to do with me? And then the minister said, that thou art, O prince, tat tvam asi. You are that Princess of Kashi. Now what happened to the prince's desire for marrying the Princess of Kashi? The desire vanished. But why did it vanish? Did it vanish because he married the Princess of Kashi? That's why it vanished? No. Why did it vanish? Because he was frustrated, he could not marry the Princess of Kashi. That's why it vanished? No. Why did his desire for the Princess of Kashi, why did it vanish? Because that beautifully said, that Princess of Kashi does not exist apart from him. He is the Princess of Kashi. There is no such thing as a separate Princess of Kashi. There is no such thing as a Princess of Kashi. This world, this universe, this life is our Princess of Kashi. We are chasing nothing but ourselves. That Sat exists in all these forms. It dresses up in all these forms. Swami Vivekananda says, it is that existence first. Then it appears as something attractive and we chase it. It appears as something terrifying and we run away from it. It is that very existence first which is yourself. You yourself are that. When you realize that, prajahati yada kama, then all desires from the mind, the desire for Princess of Kashi vanishes. Because of oneness, I alone am all this. Apart from me, no Princess of Kashi. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Jagat apart from Brahman, not there. As Brahman, Brahman alone is appearing as the Jagat. God alone is appearing as everybody else. Apart from God, nothing. And an earlier shloka enables us to understand why apart from God nothing can exist. Because God is pure existence. Apart from existence, what can exist? Rajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata atman nevatmanatushta. Suppose he does not get the Prince of Kashi. Now, how will he get joy? We think we will get joy by satisfying our desires, by eating this, by earning this money, by watching the Super Bowl, we'll get joy. How will this guy get joy who has got enlightenment? Atmannevatmanatushta. He gets joy from the Sat itself. Sat itself is existence, consciousness, bliss. All our joy in the universe is a reflection of what you already are. It's a tiny portion, a droplet of the ocean of bliss, what we are. Shankaracharya says, you are inside you, in you is an ocean of bliss. Particles of which are reflected in the objects of the world. And we chase those. Little knowing that they are our own bliss. There was a dog. And this dog got a little dry bone. And the dog, like dogs do, they began to chew this bone. And when it was chewing this bone, it cut the lip inside. And blood came out. And the dog tasted the blood and he thought, the bone is very tasty. The dry bone has no taste. What was the dog tasting? The blood. Whose blood? His own blood. So the dog fully talks about the bone is very tasty. He buried the bone. The dog did bury the bone, kept it carefully. And once in a while it will go and chew it and taste its own blood and think that it's very tasty. Our own Satchidananda is reflected in our minds when we experience the objects of the world. And that's why we think that they are joyful. But the enlightened soul gets joy from God alone. They say in Hindi, mast rehte hain apne aap mein. They remain immersed in their own joy. Atmanyevatmana tushta sthita pragyasta dukkha. Then only they are called sthita prajna. Funny thing, I remember, I'll end with this. One of the a person was reading the Gita, this portion, and is trying to memorize. And the person who was teaching him said, please repeat after me, like I told you. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata. And this poor man was repeating, he repeated, Prajahati yada kaman. And he said, what are you teaching me? Praja means people are the kingdom. Hati means elephant. Kama means cannons. So like a war, you know. There are people and there are elephants and there are cannons. So, what are you teaching? It's a real incident, actually happened. He said, Maharaj, what are you teaching me? Praja, Hati, Kaman. Prajahati yada Kaman. When he gives up all this. Gives up means it's not a very bitter thing that I have to give up by force. I want it, but somehow I have to give it up. One person was giving a donation, generous donation, and check. So here, take the check. And when the person got hold of the check, he's not letting go of the check. Why? Oh, it's so difficult to let go. Not that kind of Prajahati. When the prince gave up the desire for Kashi Desh ki Rajkumari, no need at all. I am that. There's nothing else to give up. What is there to give up? Because it has no existence apart from me. Similarly, everything in the world has no existence apart from your real self, spiritual self, the pure existence within us. A few answers to a few questions you have asked. What can we do to help God? Who are you? Who are you basically? Really speaking, you are none other than God. You yourself are none other than God. Inward, the Sat, the pure existence within you. You are not apart from God. If you remain true to your own self, you are helping God the best. If you remain true to your spiritual self, that I am existence consciousness, I am Brahman, I am Atman, I am the spirit, I am not a little boy or a little girl. I am acting to the body of a little boy or a little girl, but I am existence, pure existence. If you do that, you are helping God the best. How can you prove that the story of the Bhagavad Gita actually happened? It's actually part of our mythology, but more and more evidence is coming through excavations in India that the Kurukshetra war actually happened. More, but it's still not part of accepted history. But definitely there is enough textual evidence. Enough textual evidence. Does the Bhagavad Gita help us with every single problem? Yeah, it does. Think about it. Whatever problem you have, it's a problem like the Kashi Desh ki Rajkumari problem. Yeah. How does the Bhagavad Gita help us in life? Just like that, as we said. How long did it take to write the Bhagavad Gita? I don't know, you have to ask Krishna. Not long. Not long. Why did God create the world? The world is nothing apart from God. God is shining forth as the world. As you and as me, as you all, as me, and all these things. It's God alone who is shining forth as the world. Why doesn't God live on earth and tell us every detail about His life? You can answer it. Who lives on earth? You? I? And who are we really? God, yeah. God really does live on earth. Now you know the answer to that question. Yeah. If you do not know yourself, what's your name? If you really do not know yourself, you do not have spiritual knowledge, you say, I am Ritvik. If you have spiritual knowledge, you will say, I am Sat, the pure existence. Here I am appearing as Ritvik. That Sat is God. So I am God appearing as Ritvik now. How can we be closer to God? God, what is the closest thing to you? His body, that book, that notebook is close to you? What's closer? Your clothes. What's closer? Your body. What's even closer? Your mind. And what's the closest to you? You yourself. Isn't it? What's closer to you than you yourself? And you yourself are nothing but Sat, pure existence, God. The closest to you is God. When does God come and help us? I'll leave it to you. God is always there, and whenever you want, all the time, God is always there with you. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.
Yes. Swamiji, from the bottom of our heart, thank you very much for coming, and it was a very enlightening lecture today. It's the beauty of Gita and Acharya like you that it makes it so simple to understand and enjoy. And I don't know what, I'm sure everybody feels the same way, that more you hear Gita, more you want to hear. So hopefully in future we get to see you again. Thank you very much. Swamiji, we have a small token of appreciation for you. So I will request Ramesh Bhai again to come and do the honors. And the kids are going to also present something for you. So Ramesh Bhai. Thank you, kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I can tell from the kids' faces that they had a lot of fun and they understood and learned a lot of things today. You almost know second Swadhyaya. We will have a Aarti and then we will have Prasad. I request everybody to please stay for Aarti and Prasad. And thank you, Swamiji, and thank you, Vedant Society, for coordinating all this for us. So thank you all. We will have Aarti.